Hello, my friends, and welcome to this quick revision in your favorite subject, chemistry. Today, we are going to talk about the types of ions, and we are going to answer a few questions that are related to the same topic. Before we start answering those questions, let's have a quick revision for what we have taken before. Well, from the beginning of our revision, we have talked about the atomic structure, and we said that the atom is made up of two main parts. The first one is called the nucleus, which is in the center of the atom and includes two types of nucleons. The first one is called the positive protons, and the second one is called the neutral neutrons. The second part is called the electronic shells or energy levels, which include negative electrons only. Then we said that generally an atom is neutral, which refers to the fact that the number of protons inside the nucleus is generally equal to the number of electrons inside the electronic shells. Then we said that if we want to represent an atom, we should take into consideration those four letters or symbols, let's say. The first one, X, refers to the symbol of the atom, and as we said before, the symbol of the atom could be one letter or two, depending on what we have learned before. Then we said that this number is the atomic number, which refers to the total number of protons inside the nucleus, and A, which is the mass number, which refers to the total number of nucleons, the positive protons and neutral neutrons inside the nucleus. My friends, we talked after that about the charge number B, and we said that B has three options. The first one is when B is 0, which refers to the fact that the number of protons is equal to the number of electrons, as we said before, and the atom is neutral. Then we said generally in the chemical reactions, the atom goes through what we call electronic changes, which means that an atom could lose one or more electrons, or it could gain one or more electrons. In the first case, we said that when an atom gains one or more electrons, it becomes negatively charged because the number of electrons is going to be higher than the number of protons, and the charge of the electrons will be prominent, and we will have an anion or a negative ion. The other option here in the electronic changes is that when an atom loses one or more electrons, and it will become positively charged because the number of protons is going to be higher than the number of electrons, and in this case the positive charge of the electrons is going to be prominent over the whole atom, which is now an ion, and it will be a positive ion, which is called a cation. Then we said that we have two types of chemical materials or chemical matters. The first one we call an element, and we said that an element is a group of atoms that share the same atomic number and go through the same chemical reactions. For example, like sodium, like potassium, like oxygen, and we talked about, and we said that some elements are represented with one atom, others are represented with two, and if you want to differentiate between them, you can go to the previous class and you will find the answer to this question. Then we talked about the compound, and we said that when we have two or more different atoms from different elements, they make a compound, especially when they bound chemically together. We have, like, for example, Na2O here, sodium oxide. So that this compound is made up of two different types of elements, sodium and oxygen together, NaCl, for example, and the list goes on. Today, my friends, I would like to answer few questions about ions. The first question is that what is an ion? An ion, my friend, could be one atom, and it could be a group of atoms that has a charge. Whether this charge was positive or negative. It is ion because it has one of those two charges. Of course, atoms like Na, sodium here, or potassium, or even oxygen are here neutral because their charges is the same and it is zero. So, my friend, let's talk about monatomic ions. The monatomic ion is an ion that is made up of one atom only. For example, you have here sodium ion, chloride ion, of course, calcium ion, oxide ion, sulfide ion, chloride, and for example, we have aluminum ion, and etc. Generally, my friends, a lot of people have asked me this question. Teacher, how can I know whether sodium is going to be a positive ion or negative? And chloride, potassium, oxide, and the other types of ions? Well, to answer this question, we need to know about the electronic shells, and I am going to answer this question later in later classes. So what about the polyatomic ions, or we call them chemical roots? When we take, for example, sodium chloride and we dissolved it into water, we are going to see that it's going to be separated into one sodium ion and one chloride ion, and every one of these ions is monatomic because it is made up of one ion only. When we took salts like sodium sulfate, some people thought that it's going to be dissolved this way: sodium alone plus sulfide alone plus 4 ions of oxygen or 5 oxide ions, and this wasn't true. The correct dissolving equation was Na2SO4 A here, 2 sodium ions plus SO4 minus 2. So this equation was not correct, it was wrong, and this one was correct. And we call SO4 a chemical root or a polyatomic ion. So a polyatomic ion is an ion that is made up of more than one atom, and all of them refuse to separate from one another, and we deal with them like they are one atom only. Again, a polyatomic ion or a chemical root is a group of atoms that refuse to separate from one another, and they have one charge, and we deal with them like they are one atom only. Another example for this was, for example, calcium phosphate. Here, and we see that calcium separated into 3 calcium monoatomic ions and 2 polyatomic ions of phosphate. Again, a monoatomic is made up of one atom, and a polyatomic ion is made up of more than one atom that refuse to separate from one another, and they ask us to deal with them, all of them. Here we deal with them like they are one atom only. So we have four oxygen atoms with one phosphorus atom. Together they make one ion, or we call it a chemical root. While this calcium atom makes a monoatomic ion, which, and before that, scientists thought that this salt, or this chemical compound, could be dissolved this way. P, for example, 0.5 plus 4 oxygen minus 2. And this turned out to be wrong, and that was the correct one. So, my friends, in short, we have learned today about ions, and we said that an ion is one or a group of atoms that has a charge. And we said that we have two types of ions, monatomic ions or monoatomic ions, as some references mention. And we said that the monoatomic ion is made up of only one atom that has lost or gained one or more electrons, while the polyatomic or ions or chemical roots are ions that are made up of more than one atom, and they refuse to separate from one another ionically, and they are going to be dealt with like one ion. For example, here we deal with SO4, all of them, those are 5 atoms. We deal with them like one ion, as we deal with one atom of sodium, simply because they refuse to be separated from one another ionically. Now, my friends, before I say goodbye to you, allow me to introduce my homework for you for the next class. Classify those ions. As you see here, you have a group of ions, and you are going to be asked to classify them into monoatomic ions and polyatomic ions. Then, under this classification, you need to classify them into cations and anions. Thanks, my friends, for watching this video. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed and learned something from this class. And if you don't, try please to replay this video and play some Kahoot games which are related to the types of ions, and you are going to see that they are very beneficiary for you and they will teach you something useful. Well, thank you, my friends. See you in the next classes. Stay well and study harder. Thank you so much, and goodbye again.